All right, Mac, as you alluded to, we're going to start with Clemson. We will get to Miami's covering win over Duke. We will get to SMU's massive win over Pitt that you were there for, Mac. We'll get to Syracuse's impressive win over Virginia Tech. However, let's start with Clemson. Louisville, talk about impressive. Louisville beats number 11 Clemson 33-21. Mac, I was there, so I can give you some insight there. It was just kind of Clemson played terribly, I think, in pretty much every facet of the game. Louisville did what they needed to do to win. I want to just set you up, Mac, let you run with it. Your overall thoughts.
Yeah, yeah. It was wild, and I think the other interesting piece of it was, having the late kick while we're watching. So I'm like, while we're working, so I'm watching part of it, doing TV at the game, watching back and forth. So it was one of those things where, you see it and Clemson's up. I saw Clemson walk down the field, score, and you're like, okay, cool. And then I look back and, Louisville's up like 2 scores. You're just like, whoa,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
What happened? What happened? And, it's after going back and, just thinking about the game and seeing the game, it was just really, really weird. And then there's a bunch of different ways. I mean, I can get super emotional and talk about it if we want. But, I think just the overarching thing of a team with a lot of momentum, a lot of excitement that has not been there in quite some time. Talking about November, talking about night game in the Valley.
Talking about playoff, right?
Playoffs, Heisman, all these different things, that you're just really excited about. And then for it to come crashing down, the way it did, and give Louisville a ton of credit. I get it. We have significantly more Clemson, followers on this than Louisville. So we'll play into Louisville a little bit. But, just seeing how the team came out after a bye week, just weird. And it was brought to my attention. This is Clemson's 3rd straight year losing after a bye. And now I know they had another bye earlier, and they beat NC State, a bad NC State team, which had a great win. We'll talk about that. But it's just a weird lack of preparedness. The situationally, like things that happened, throughout the game where you see the, timing of scoring. The offense felt like I was watching the Georgia game again, like side to side stuff, not going vertical, weird decisions being made, the blocked field goals. Like, as a guy that played on the field goal team my whole life, it's embarrassing. It's terrible. And guys just getting boloed. There's a dude laying on the ground, like looking at the sky while the ball's getting blocked and picked up and ran back. I'm just like, what is happening? What is going on? Punting was not good. And then just the defense. I mean, I've been talking about this. It feels like all year that there's spurts where you're like, oh, this is great. And will this be Clemson's best game? It was Clemson's worst game. I mean, it was just embarrassing to see, guys in the wrong gaps, 0 sacks. I mean, the lack of production is alarming. And I don't know, to get ran on for 200 plus yards, 150 of or whatever it was by a true freshman. It's not acceptable. It's not what Clemson does. It's not what they've built their brand on. It's what they built everything on. And that stinks to watch. It's painful to watch. And even the lack of, sorry, I am getting emotional at this point. Even the lack of, sense of urgency at the end of the game. Like, it took Clemson like 5 minutes to score a touchdown. And I'm just looking like, guys, like, go, let's get going. And guys being short of the line to gain, running out of bounds short of the line to gain, not getting out of bounds to save clock, having personnel issues that loses clock and loses yardage, not going for 2. Like, there was a couple of different points where, like, I mean, I've never coached. I've never had to call plays. I've never had to make those decisions, but I kind of know situations. You want to be down 11, not down 2 touchdowns. And so it was really, really weird. Very weird. Like, things that we thought were way in the rear view that reared up in a hurry. And I saw some people, tweeting and talking about this was way worse than the Duke game, which I don't know if that's quite true. But it was very similar, eerie feelings where you're just like, what are we watching? What's out there? And I can't even imagine for you being, in the stadium and excited for a night game, and, you get it, be out with your friends and your husband. And then it's just like, I would have rather stayed home with my kid.
Yeah, especially the babysitting bill that I paid watching that game. Mac, okay, so that's interesting comparing it to the Duke game last year. I think the difference is, especially specifically last year for Clemson, a lot of the losses were explainable because you just turned the ball over all the time.
Right.
You
Right.
had zero turnovers in this game and lost by 12 to Louisville. Like
Yeah.
that's honestly the craziest part. You didn't have any crazy, freaky fumble at the 1 yard line, pass tipped off a player's head, someone catches it. You didn't have that.
Right.
You just got outplayed. And the stats don't necessarily say that because Clemson did outgain Louisville, but some of that was late. But also Louisville, like they had to settle for a lot of field goals. It could have been worse. Clemson's defense
Sure.
did held up a little bit there, but it's almost like they were content to settle for field goals because
Right.
they were not afraid of your offense. And
Right.
Mac, I know you had to go back and watch it because you were working. I'm curious if you thought it was more Louisville's secondary playing really, really well or Clemson's receivers not able to get separation because it felt like a lot of times Cade was scrambling, like creating a little more time in the pocket, which sometimes he does get happy feet. But it's like no one was finding a way to get open for him. You
Right.
contrast that with watching Miami. Cam Ward scrambles and dudes get open for him.
Right.
Like
Right.
he adds, 4, 5, 6 seconds to the play. Restrepo's going to make a play or someone else. And you did not have that. Like there wasn't a single receiver that like made a play in the
Right.
entire game for Clemson. And Wesco was even back. That's what's crazy.
Yeah, and that part, was so weird because again, in the first half particularly, it was just so much side to side
Yeah.
stuff, and
Yeah.
getting stuffed. Which again, I think the initial feeling when you're watching it, and then you look at the stats, and you're like, wait, what? Clemson rushed for how many yards? 200 and what? They were
222.
getting
Yeah.
bullied. Well, they were doing the bullying, and then you dive in even further because I think you got to combine them because neither one really tells the story without
Mhm.
context and diving in. And I think again the side to side stuff was annoying. I mean, at one point I think Cade was averaging like 3 yards an attempt, which is just crazy. Again, very last year type of vibes.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Good way to put it.
again, you have to give Louisville credit. I
For
prefaced that
sure.
at the beginning, but they had like 10 pass breakups. They had
Yeah.
2 sacks,
And,
six
and
or
that's why
seven
I
tackles for
really
loss.
do think you got to give credit to the Louisville secondary. I
You
think
do.
they
You
showed
do.
up.
They did, and they played inspired. And I'll say this about that. What took so long? Thanks for doing it against us. Thanks for ruining the ACC's chance. It's great. Awesome. Very typical.
Bellotti also made his
Of this
presence
league.
known. Like
Yeah. I mean,
the
it's
Louisville
just,
defense stood up.
right. And that's what I've been begging for and talking about
Mhm.
preseason. Okay, this is what I really thought this team was going to be good at. And then, of course, it shows up against Clemson, which is it's typical and funny, but whatever. It is what it is. Interesting road ahead for both teams. Clemson, one loss in the ACC, certainly not out, but don't control your own destiny. And all those situations that we've been talking about,
Yeah.
situationally tiebreaker and stuff, that is now not good because you are certainly on the outside looking in. Miami, SMU, Clemson do not play. So it's not like you can go and beat those guys and earn a right to play for an ACC championship. Totally out of your control. And if we're being serious and quite frank, those two teams have a significantly easier path when you look at who they play and who they have left to where you feel like it's locked up. It's
And
done.
they look way better. I
And they look
mean,
significantly better.
yeah,
Well, in the one game, yeah, for sure.
as of late.
Since we've seen them, yeah, as of last night, as of Saturday night. So yeah, it's one of those things. And two things I do want to address because I think we need to. The first being what you tweeted out that this is the best team that Clemson's played since Georgia, and they look terrible. I agree,
Yeah.
totally agree. And
So that's even
we
more
pointed
telling.
that out. Yeah, it is. And now it's like November. Look out. Here we
Yeah.
go. Is this a time where you're going to see this team fall apart or was that just a one-off and now a second off because of the Georgia game and they
Mhm.
refigured out? I don't know. It looked like Peter Woods might have went down at some
Yeah.
point. I don't know how much we saw him in the second half.
He basically didn't play.
Yeah,
He
so
was like he
it's
was out.
interesting. And then the last thing, and I know where it came from and I know the area which it came from, but we cannot throw stuff on the field. Like it's embarrassing. I was honestly like ill seeing it because I knew what was going to come from it and seeing it all across social media. It's embarrassing. It's really embarrassing. So let's be a little bit better than that. Let's win and lose with class. Like I know it's hard and I know there was calls and things of that nature, but it certainly wasn't any type of outcome to the game. So got to be better than that. So I just challenge everybody to not be silly doing things.
Agreed on that, Mac. And I'm going to add two more things. Speaking of the crowd, I am not in any way, shape, or form making an excuse for that because you can't do it. Totally agree. And that's not what Clemson's about. They should not throw stuff on the field. That was one of the more frustrated crowds I've ever been in for a Clemson game because you expect to win and then you just look that bad. But people were leaving. People came back after halftime. It's not like they gave up on the team. But after the 4th-and-1 stop, like midway through the third quarter, a lot of people left. And I also wanted to leave at that time. But don't worry, I waited until the second blocked field goal before I left because I was paying a babysitter $20 an hour. But, Mac, the second thing, and I thought the crowd brought it. I don't think it was a crowd issue. The crowd brought it and tried to give the team everything they could. The team just gave them nothing to cheer for. So, and then it got tough after the second half. The second thing, Mac, the special teams has truly become unacceptable.
Yeah.
Like, you no longer have the margin of error where your special teams cannot be great. Because really, for most of this era, it's not like Clemson has had great special teams.
Right.
But they've had decent special teams, and you were so good in other areas you could make up for it. But now that's not the case. So your special teams kill you. The punting was bad, and then the 2 missed field goals. Like, if you make both those field goals, then and if you still play this poorly, it's a little interesting down the stretch. Maybe if you do recover an onside kick or whatever. So
it's just momentum. I mean, it's momentum play.
That too.
Both of them. I mean, with the punting, you can't flip the field at all.
No.
And then with the field goals, I mean, that is a juice play. Like that's like a big score, a big turnover, a big hit, a dunk, a transitional 3. Like it's things that get one team going and bring back the other team. And the fact that it happened twice, the fact that it's happened like 4 times in whatever span and the same side in the same place is just.
I mean, just think special teams in general. Like, you had to go get a guy off the street last year to kick. Like,
right.
It just.
And I mean, even the.
It's so confusing.
Like doing that job just to really peel this back for people. Because again, I did this my entire career. It's insane and it stinks. But here's the deal: you put your arms out, you lock on, and you literally grab and like get a holding call, whatever it is. But you don't just get dunked on and let people rip through. I mean, it's really crazy what I'm seeing. And I don't know if that's poor coaching. I don't know if that's friends in there. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know who's in there. I'm not looking at the numbers and replaying, reviewing the special teams deal, but you've got to figure that out because that's just bad. That's bad details. It's bad effort. It's bad everything. And it's just not cool. Anyway, were there any other games? Were there any other cool stuff?
Yes.
Are we good?
We're going to get to that. I just want to add 2 for Louisville. We said this on Friday. Massive win for Louisville. Turns your season in a different direction because they've had
first time ever beating Clemson and doing it at home at night. Congratulations.
It's really big. Cool. And Isaac Brown is for real. I mean, that guy is the truth.
Hey, he put him to sleep. Did you see him, the little tiger mascot? I was like, oh that hurts.
He's good. And he's just
big dog. Good for you.
Yeah. He's a